Welcome to the Football Film Room Show. I'm Nick Kehoe. We got another great show for you today. We're going to talk about Jaxson Dart's debut. There was some good, some bad, some ugly. We'll get into all of it with Dart's performance. Going to go cross town, or I guess across the stadium to the other side of the locker room, the New York Jets. Talk about their 0-4 start. We'll talk to you about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs' offense bouncing back. We'll get a little bit into some of the other young quarterbacks. Dillon Gabriel making his first start this weekend. Michael Penix bouncing back last week against the Commanders. But before we do any of that, I want to go back to the 1970s. And specifically, I want to talk about the Steelers and their head coach, Chuck Noll. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, you very likely know about those Steelers teams. They were the team of the 70s. A dynasty. They won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. No one's ever done that before or since. But when Chuck Noll took over the job in 1969, he wasn't walking into a decent situation. The Steelers were a bad team, a bad franchise, had been a loser for decades, and he had a lot of work cut out for him. It wasn't just about adding talent, because as you know, you don't win in the NFL just with talent. Now, talent was obviously a part of the equation, and the Steelers ended up adding quite a few Hall of Famers. But more so, it was about changing the culture. Now, Chuck Noll went about his business differently than a lot of coaches. He wasn't a big rah-rah guy, wasn't a yeller, certainly wasn't a motivational speaker. And it's actually pretty interesting to hear the players that he coached talk about him, which you can see in all those great NFL Films America's Game documentaries. Andy Russell, who was a linebacker for the Steelers, was there in Chuck Noll's first year in 1969. He said about Noll that his basic approach was, I'm not going to ever give you a motivational speech, because if I have to motivate you, I will fire you. He also said he was playing in a game in 1969, his first year with Noll as the head coach, and he said he made his first big mistake. His man caught a touchdown pass, and he came to the sideline, and instead of Noll coming over and berating him or yelling at him for missing an assignment, he stood next to him and he said, now when we gave up that touchdown, what was your thought process? And that gives you Chuck Noll in a nutshell. He was about the process. He wasn't about what the Steelers were going to do to other teams. He was about how they were going to do it. Another of Noll's players from that time, Rocky Bleier, running back, he had an interesting perspective on Noll as well. He said Noll, not only wasn't he a rah-rah guy, he didn't like his players to be that way. In fact, there was one game where, players, they grow up being taught, hey, cheer on your team, be loud from the sidelines, that sort of thing. And apparently one player was doing that, was yelling, cheering on his team, and Noll turned around and said, we don't have any of that here, because that lasts only this long. The thing that gets you through when you're out there on the field is the habits that you create. What you do in practice that carries out to the field, not the emotional rah-rah stuff, that's what wins you ball games. And that approach led to the Steelers methodically winning game after game after game in the 70s, and then, of course, those 4 Super Bowl titles. And this brings us to the New York Jets. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. What on earth do the 1970s Steelers have to do with the 2025 Jets? And right now, not a whole lot, other than the Jets have a head coach in Aaron Glenn, who's coming into a losing organization, an organization that's been a big loser for a long time now. And he's trying to do exactly what Chuck Noll did, which is turn that losing organization around. And it's not just about talent. It's about culture, too. Aaron Glenn has been talking about that all offseason. It clearly is a top priority of his to change the culture in that Jets building. But right now, they look like the same old Jets. And it's not just that they're 0-4. I think this year we weren't going to be looking at the Jets and saying whatever their win-loss record was, that was going to determine necessarily the success of the team or the success of the season. We were looking at, okay, is Aaron Glenn turning this team around? Are they playing the right way? And so far, I don't think you can say that they are. Their lack of discipline, their lack of attention to detail is killing them week in, week out. Last year, they were the number 1 penalized team in the NFL. This year, they had the 4th most penalties. On Monday night against the Dolphins, they had 13 penalties for 101 yards. Definitely cost them a chance at winning that game. But it's not just the penalties. Their discipline in all 3 phases of the game has been bad. On special teams, week 1, Xavier Gipson fumbled a kick return in the fourth quarter, played a huge role in the Jets losing that game. His replacement, Isaiah Williams, fumbled the second half kickoff on Monday night. He also had a fair catch on the 2-yard line, which I don't know how that happens if you have any attention to detail as a team. The defense has had blown coverages, particularly in that first game against the Steelers. They've missed tackles. The offense is turning the ball over, and they're doing it in just exactly the way you would expect the Jets to do it, in back-breaking fashion. Like Braylon Allen fumbling the ball on the 1-yard line on Monday night, trying to reach for the end zone when he didn't need to. He probably would have scored if he had just fallen into the end zone and kept the ball secured. But either way, you don't reach for the end zone unless it's fourth down. You don't risk losing the ball in that situation when you know defenders are going to be trying to punch at it. But the biggest issue with that fumble was how the entire Jets team seemed to just go into the tank. It was almost as if the entire team just collectively said, well, here we go again, and the wheels came off. Now that's where that losing mindset, that culture, that mentality, that's where that has such an impact. And it's an impact that you can't necessarily quantify in the numbers or see on the All-22. And that's what Glenn is trying to change. But you can't change that with fantastic press conferences. You can't change that with demonstrative behavior on the sidelines or jumping up and down or pumping your fist. I've heard so many people in the Jets universe recently talk about how Robert Saleh, suddenly he's the defensive coordinator of the 49ers again, and he's jumping up and down and pumping his fist, and he looks like he did 4 or 5 years ago. And everyone's saying, where was that with the Jets? Who cares? It doesn't matter. That's not what gets you out of a losing mindset. What gets you out is the habits that you create, as Chuck Noll said. You ever notice how all the great teams just seem so robot-like? Like they can't be broken? No matter what adversity they face, they bounce back immediately? It's not because someone gives a great speech on the sideline or holds a players-only meeting. It's because they have instilled in them the habits that lead to winning. They have the habits that they can lean on when times are tough. Hey, I know if I just keep doing the thing that we've been drilling in practice, the score is going to take care of itself. The Jets don't have that yet. Who knows if they ever will? And I'm not saying that Aaron Glenn isn't trying to do that. I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's working the team hard in practice, trying to instill those great habits. But it's a lot easier said than done. And a lot of people thought this was going to be a quick fix. A lot of people thought he was going to be able to turn the culture around immediately. And look, he might be able to relatively soon. He might be able to this season. We still don't know. It's only been 4 games. But to this point, you can see the job he has in front of him. He's got his work cut out for him because this Jets team still has the muscle memory of so many bad years, and it's going to take a while to break that. Speaking of struggling New York football teams, let's talk about the Giants and Jaxson Dart's debut. Now, the big headline is that the Giants won, and they seem to play with more energy on both sides of the ball. But Jaxson Dart's performance was a bit of a mixed bag, and that's okay. This was his first NFL start. I wasn't expecting him to be Dan Marino. Wasn't expecting him to throw for 300 yards. He leaned on his legs, as any rookie quarterback who has the ability to run is going to do. He used his legs, and there were some design runs. There were a couple RPOs. There were a couple PROs, pass run options. You can actually check out footballfilmroom.com. I did an in-depth breakdown of his performance. The 2 big takeaways I have are, one, I expect to see the Giants continue to use him in the design running game. That's going to have to be a part of their offense, especially with Malik Neighbors now done for the year. But he's got to do a better job of protecting himself, and hopefully Brian Daboll is telling him that, and hopefully he's going to manage some of these games with that in mind, and not necessarily have him running quarterback powers and off tackle plays, because Dart is the type of player who wants to mix it up, and that's part of the good about his game. That certainly brings energy to the team. He can get some key first downs. Teams do get fired up and energized when they see their quarterback running and bowling over defenders, but he took too many shots to his throwing shoulder. He had one run where he did a full-on O.J. Anderson Super Bowl 25 wind-up haymaker I guess he didn't wind up, but he almost tried to slap or punch a Chargers defender in the face. Play ended up getting called back, but he's got to protect his throwing hand. He's got to protect his shoulder. A running back can play if he can't lift his arm above shoulder height. A quarterback cannot. And Dart, I know he was fired up as his first NFL start. That's just the type of player he is. He's not going to be on the field if he keeps playing that way. So he's got to be a little bit more careful. But look, his legs are definitely an asset. His legs are definitely a factor. He should continue to lean on them, but he's just got to be smarter. Can't take as many hits. From a passing standpoint, I think I want to chalk up his performance to this just being the first game, and Daboll didn't ask him to do too much. Like I said, RPOs, pass run options. He wasn't doing a lot of pure progressions where he was getting through 5 receivers or needed to get through 5 receivers. My biggest concern from this game, or my biggest takeaway from this game, was that his feet were just kind of all over the place from within the pocket. There were a couple plays where he just didn't set his feet, and that led to inaccurate throws, or it made it so he wasn't ready to throw, and he had receivers open downfield had he just set his feet and delivered the ball. It's not something that I saw on his college tape a ton, though. So I don't think it's something that you need to worry about necessarily, as this is just part of his game he's got to get through. To me, it was a little bit more nerves in his first start. I actually don't think he even played this way during the preseason. I thought he looked a lot different from the pocket during the preseason. So I'm not nervous or worried. I will say I want to keep an eye on it and make sure that he's not doing that every week. I do think he'll bounce back, and like I said, based on his college tape, he always had pretty decent feet. He had the ability to get the ball, set his feet, get the ball out on time, throw with anticipation. So we'll keep an eye on it. But it's good to get that first one under your belt. That's a tough defense that the Chargers have there. So hopefully he'll have some better looks this week against the Saints. Hopefully the playbook will be expanded a little bit more in the passing game, and he'll be able to take a step forward in his second start. Really quick, want to stick with the rookie quarterbacks. Dillon Gabriel getting the nod in Cleveland this week against Minnesota. Again, that's not an easy defense to go against. Brian Flores, you know he's gonna be bringing those 6 and 7 up looks and clogging those A gaps and blitzing over here and dropping defenders out over there. That's a tall task for a quarterback in his very first start. What I will say is Gabriel, he plays with a better sense of timing than both Shedeur Sanders and Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is just a little bit more of a downfield quarterback, wants to throw to the outside, a little bit slower moving. Gabriel, I think in the preseason and on his college tape, he showed the ability to process quickly, get the ball out on time. He really is a ball distributor. He gets through his reads quickly. He showed the ability to move in the pocket, make throws in the tight windows. I think we'll see plenty of that. The question is just, will the Vikings be able to slow down his decision-making? Because I do think Gabriel is a quick processor, but, man, that Brian Flores defense, they're going to do things to make him hold the ball. They're going to do things to try to make him process slower than he normally does. And that's the big fear you have if you're the Browns. Gabriel, if he can play with timing and rhythm, he can look pretty darn good. He can have a good game. If he's forced to hesitate, if he has to hold the ball, he doesn't necessarily have that skill set to win as much late in the play. So will be interesting to see both how the Vikings play this one and what the Browns do to help their young quarterback making his first start. Let's talk one more young quarterback before we get to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Michael Penix. I've been a big fan of his. I loved his college tape. Last year, the 3 starts he got with the Falcons, I thought he looked like he belonged. He looked like a veteran. I wrote in my breakdown on footballfilmroom.com that he made more big-time throws in his 3 games than Caleb Williams and Drake May did in their entire season of starting. Because it was impressive. The stuff he was putting on tape last year was truly impressive. And he's had some moments this year where he played well. That first game he played pretty well. Then he had 2 games, one that the Falcons won against the Vikings. In week 3 against the Panthers, Falcons got shut out somehow, 30-0, just a blowout that I don't think anyone saw coming. And it's one of those games that just, I can't really chalk up to anything other than sometimes it happens. He just wasn't throwing the ball well. He wasn't seeing the field well. I can't say it was anything the Panthers were doing. I can't say it was anything the Falcons weren't doing. I think he just had a bad game. That happens every once in a while. And the reason I thought that was because there was nothing I'd seen on tape prior to that game, either in college or in the NFL, where he looked like that. So it to me just seemed like one of those weird anomaly-type games. And I expected him to bounce back against the Commanders, and he rewarded that faith because he had an excellent game last week against Washington. You could see it early on. He was seeing the field well. He was delivering the ball with anticipation, putting the ball where he wanted to. Offensive coordinator Zach Robinson did a great job of getting Drake London some looks. I think he had him in the slot a little bit more, had him in motion on a couple key plays. There was a bunch of different ways that Zach Robinson sort of dressed up traditional concepts, and he had a receiver who normally does one thing, do another, or switch responsibilities with another receiver, and that led to some big plays, led to some touchdowns. But the biggest thing was that Penix orchestrated the offense, was delivering the ball downfield with accuracy, was doing all the things that I thought he was going to be able to do this season. And hopefully the Falcons moving forward can build off of this. They've got a bye week and then a game against the Bills coming up. And he's one of those guys that I have had my eyes on. Like, I really want to see how he does in a 17-game season because he's so intriguing as a quarterback. Just love the way he attacks downfield and how proficient he is at throwing the ball downfield. And that's probably a good segue into our final segment. The Kansas City Chiefs, a team that's been struggling to push the ball downfield. I wouldn't say they did it a ton against the Ravens this past week, but this was very much a bounce back game for the passing attack of the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes threw for 270 yards, 4 touchdowns. He continued to look like the Patrick Mahomes of old. I think I told you all 2 weeks ago, I need to see a lot more disaster before I start to panic about the Chiefs. And since then, they've come back with 2 straight wins. The offense looking better and better. Xavier Worthy out on the field again. They're going to get Rashee Rice back in a couple of weeks. They found something in Tyquan Thornton that Mahomes clearly loves. I told you they seem like they want to go downfield more. They're trying to go downfield more. The big thing I'd like to see more of, though, is some more design shots. The Chiefs going downfield right now has been a little bit of just, let's throw a go ball. And they connected on one. Worthy caught one early in the game. But throwing go balls, there's a difference between that and taking a shot on like a deep post-cross combination, doing so off of play action. Still would like to see them do more of that. But one thing I'll say is that Mahomes, if anyone had any doubts about him, like I don't know what you were watching. Like yeah, he's got some habits where sometimes he leaves the pocket too early. Sometimes he doesn't throw to the open receiver even though there's someone there. But I mean, he single-handedly defeated cover zero multiple times in this game. Had one play where he saw the pressure coming from his right, knew that it was cover zero, knew that they couldn't pick it up, backpedaled a bit, slid to his left, bought himself a split second more of time, and then threw the ball with great anticipation, just laid it out for Travis Kelce. Beautiful throw, first down. Had another play where it was cover zero, and this time he just fled the pocket, forced a defender to come up and try to play him to prevent him from running, and then he just dumped it over his head to his running back. And then at the end of the game, as the Chiefs were trying to put the game away, they faced a 4th and 1. Ravens played cover zero. The Chiefs and Mahomes kind of anticipated that's what they would see. Mahomes rolled out to his right. First read wasn't there. Second read wasn't there. Hit his last read, Hollywood Brown, in the end zone. Perfect strike for a touchdown. And it was a play that Mahomes talked about after the game. He sort of anticipated that he would see cover zero and might have to get to his last read on this one. So he told Hollywood Brown in the huddle, hey, you're going to have to win your route and make sure you get across field because I've got a feeling I'm going to have to get the ball to you. So great stuff by Patrick Mahomes. As always, whenever anyone seems to doubt this guy, he has a knack for coming right back and reminding everyone just how good he is. The Chiefs are very much not done. They're 2-2, and there's a lot of season left. That's it for today's show. Thank you for listening as always. Got another great week of NFL football coming up. I can't believe we're already in week 5. At least we get another overseas game, a 9:30 start. Nothing my wife loves more than when football starts on a Sunday at 9:30 in the morning and ends at midnight. So I'm going to be absolutely useless around the house. I hope you all also have a good weekend, and I'll see you next time.